Joining me for more on the crisis in Syria is Phyllis Bennis. She is the director of the new international project at the Institute for Policy Studies. Let's start with the U.S. and Russia. John Kerry saying that they share common interests. There hasn't been a lot of common ground between these two countries, though, has there?
No, there hasn't at all. But this is a very optimistic sign that they at least are talking about the possibility of common interests. There needs to be a diplomatic solution here. There needs to be a political resolution, not fight till the last Syrian. And the only way that's going to happen is if first there is a de-escalation of the militarization that's now underway, with the Russians providing arms to the regime, the U.S. orchestrating the arms that are going to the rebels. If the two can agree on a de-escalation, that could lead to the possibility of further negotiations.
I heard someone say this is just the beginning of the beginning, though, because you still have the opposition and Assad, and both of them deeply entrenched, both thinking that they're winning this war.
Absolutely. It's a huge problem. And we also have the problem that this isn't one war. This isn't a war. This is 5 wars that are being fought in the context of the Syrian conflict. And in that context, the role of the United States and Russia become very important as the international sponsors of the two sides within which these broader wars are being fought.
Wars within wars, a proxy war within a proxy war, and now Israel injected into the equation. How does that change the calculus?
It changes the calculus politically. It doesn't change it militarily. I think it was interesting that after the Israeli strikes, which of course Israel has not acknowledged, similar to its position on its own nuclear weapons arsenal, which it doesn't acknowledge, but the whole rest of the world, other than official Washington, agrees exists. But similar to that, the Israelis are not acknowledging that they carried out these airstrikes, but it's quite clear that they did. In response, there was apparently 2 very small-scale missile attacks from the Syrian side into Israel. And the Israeli position was, we don't think this was aimed at us. We don't take this seriously. This was just a spillover from the Syrian civil war. The message was, we're not trying to escalate. One would have thought that an Israeli strike like this was designed to provoke Syria into some kind of a military response as a way of pressuring the U.S. to intervene more directly. But what we've seen is that Israel does not have an interest in overthrowing the regime in Damascus. This is a regime, despite all the rhetoric about being the center of resistance and that sort of thing, that has cooperated very well with Israel over the years, as did the father of Bashar al-Assad, Hafez al-Assad. Throughout those years, from 1970 until today, the Assad family has kept the border quiet, has kept the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights quiet, has managed to make sure that there is very little opposition from Palestinians based in Syria. So they have done a very good job for Israel, despite the fact that neither side will acknowledge that.
We only have about 20 seconds or so, but I did want to get into the chemical weapons, because one thing that we know is everything's murky there. And this is another issue where who did what is still very much in question.
It's very much in question. There have been allegations of both sides using it. It may have been both. It may have been one or the other. It may have been neither. The key question here is still the what if and even if question. Even if chemical weapons have been used, that is a specific international law violation. There should be accountability, but having direct U.S. military intervention is not going to solve the problem. Killing more civilians in Syria with regular conventional weapons as a way of preventing anyone from using some future possibility of chemical weapons is not going to help anyone.
Phyllis Bennis, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.